Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live at 4. Good to have you with us on this Monday. We have a lot to get to today. It is an alert day because of the bitterly cold weather. But first, we'll get to that in just a second. But first, some breaking news. 15 people are hurt after a Delta Airlines plane flipped upon arrival at Toronto's Pearson Airport. 3 people are critically injured, including a child.
The airport confirmed on X that an incident occurred today with the Delta flight from Minneapolis, and all 80 passengers and crew are accounted for. Video from the scene shows the plane upside down on the snowy tarmac as emergency workers hose it down. The wings and tail section were ripped off, and crews are still responding. We will provide updates throughout Live at 4 as we get them.
It's a startling scene to see that picture. Let's get a check on the forecast now. It is bitterly cold today. Sunny, though. I guess that's some small consolation. Jacob Montesano is watching the weather for us. Hi, Jacob.
Hey, Susan. And yeah, despite the sunshine, temperatures are bitterly cold. Looking at the current temperatures, much of the area in the single digits, and these are just the air temperatures. Wind chills are pretty well below zero because looking at the current wind speeds up around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Winds, not too bad, but when temperatures are this cold, you can really feel those winds. Here's a look at the current wind chills, and this is arguably, around the warmest time of the day, and we're in the negative teens across southern Wisconsin. So alert day conditions, they are going to continue. They're going to continue for tomorrow through Wednesday. That's when the alert day will come to an end, and we're going to see morning wind chills in the negative 20s at least the next 2 mornings. So taking a look at the cold weather advisory across southern Wisconsin, there's also a extreme cold warning in the dark blue to the west of our area. This is for tonight through Tuesday morning because it's actually going to get even colder. Looking at the wind chill forecast, they could get down to near negative 30 by the time we get to sunrise Tuesday morning. So it's going to get colder before it gets warmer, but it will eventually get warmer. I'll talk about when that'll occur coming up a little bit later.
Thanks, Jacob. Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency is seeking access to highly sensitive taxpayer information despite facing multiple legal challenges.
Earlier today, a federal judge appeared worried about a lack of evidence in attempting to block DOJ from making cuts to the federal workforce, while another declined to stop Musk from potentially accessing government data.
A 33-year-old man is in the Dane County Jail in connection to a shooting on Madison's south side over the weekend. Police say at about 5 in the morning on Saturday, officers went to Dutch Mill Road to find a man who had been shot. He told officers the shooting happened 20 minutes before on Sunnyvale Lane off Foxwood Trail. They arrested the suspect later at a hotel on Junction Court. Police say the shooter and the victim know each other. The suspect is facing a charge of first-degree recklessly endangering safety.
At the state capitol, the governor has announced a major overhaul of the state's prison system.
And it would close some facilities and transfer inmates out of Wisconsin's embattled youth prison. Political reporter Will Keneally has a story. Will.
Well, Brady, let's start with that youth prison right there, that Lincoln Hills Copper Lake facility. That would close to juvenile inmates, and they would be spread across other facilities in the state, some in southeastern Wisconsin, but also a new facility here in Dane County in Oregon. Now, that's part of the governor's plan to reimagine what this system looks like.
Additionally, I'm proposing some of the most sweeping and significant facility and capital changes in Department of Corrections history. Part of keeping our communities safe is making sure our facilities are safe. And here's the good news. We can make the investments we need to while saving Wisconsinites taxpayers in the long run.
So now when you hear capital, think building projects. The governor says he would save taxpayers by renovating existing facilities instead of building new. Now what this means, for example, is that the youth prison inmates from Lincoln Hills, they would of course be dispersed across the state. Then they would renovate the Lincoln Hills facility, make it an adult facility, and move some people up there, eventually closing this Green Bay facility. It's one of the oldest prisons from the 1800s, as well as some significant renovations to a facility in Waupun, again from the 1800s. Now this is part of the governor's budget request, and we'll hear more from him tomorrow when he delivers that budget address.
Thank you, Will. And later on Live at 4, News 3 Now's Kyle Pozorski talks with a woman whose father died by suicide in the Waupun prison up north. What she has to say about the governor's proposed changes to the state's prison system.
Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is expanding its services in Madison. The reproductive health care facility will now offer vasectomies at the Madison East Health Center. Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin says it's working with local doctors to provide the service 2 days a month. It comes 2 years since the provider started offering the procedure in Milwaukee. Planned Parenthood Wisconsin CEO and president issued a statement with the announcement, reading in part, quote, "The expansion of vasectomy services to Madison comes at a critical time when access to sexual and reproductive health care, including abortion, is increasingly out of reach. We're proud to expand vasectomy services and help ensure people have the resources they need to make decisions for their own bodies, lives, and futures."
Next on Live at 4, when you can expect the alert day conditions to kick in.
They haven't kicked in already?
What? Huh?
Yeah. Plus, how the president's plan to end the war in Ukraine is being received overseas.
Welcome back. Multiple sources say Trump administration officials fired, then rehired workers at the agency tasked with managing the country's nuclear stockpile. Trump officials initially said fewer than 50 National Nuclear Security Administration staffers had been let go, but that was not true. Late Thursday, hundreds of probationary employees of the National Nuclear Security Administration were fired. About 30% of those hit have the most sensitive jobs across the nuclear weapons enterprise.
The firings didn't stop there. Over the weekend, DOJ targeted several hundred workers within the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. It comes less than 3 weeks after a mid-air crash over the Potomac killed dozens of people. The FAA's union president said in a statement that staffing decisions should be based on each agency's need and that to do otherwise is, quote, dangerous and unconscionable.
We're not expecting to get a break anytime soon with this cold weather, are we, Jacob?
No, we're going to continue to see these bitter cold temperatures. In fact, they're going to get worse before they get better. The alert day is going to continue through Wednesday, but even after Wednesday, it still will be a bit cold. We are going to be dry for much of this week as well until next week. The good news is that it is going to be a lot milder once we get to next week, but until then, we're still going to have a few mornings with the wind chills, not just below zero, but well below zero in the negative 20s the next 2 mornings. So the alert day continuing through Wednesday. And as we take a look at the current wind chill bulletins, cold weather advisory for southern Wisconsin, but further to the west and northwest, there is that extreme cold warning. That is for tonight through Tuesday morning. But we are certainly not alone when it comes to the cold. Look at all these extreme cold warnings across several states in the Midwest region, the entire state of North Dakota and Minnesota under that extreme cold warning. So we're certainly not alone with this cold weather. And as we take a look at the wind gust forecast, the winds aren't going to be too bad, but obviously when you get these temperatures as cold as they will be, the winds can, just a little bit of wind can create those very cold wind chills, and it is going to remain just a tad bit breezy with wind gusts up around 15 to 20 miles per hour for the next couple of days. So taking a look at that wind chill forecast, again, for Tuesday morning, wind chills could get down to negative 30. So it's likely going to be even colder for tomorrow morning. And Tuesday afternoon, they're going to remain well below zero in the negative teens. And for Wednesday morning, we're going to have another morning with wind chills in the negative 20s. Now, by Wednesday afternoon, wind chills might get above zero for some locations, but notice I said might because we're likely going to still be below zero during this time. And for Thursday morning, alert day conditions will come to an end here, but it's still going to be very cold with wind chills in the negative 20s to negative single digits. And then we'll finally get above zero for Thursday afternoon. So even though the alert day conditions will end Thursday, it's still going to be cold. And looking at the wind chill to frostbite time, when wind chills get this low, we could see frostbite in as little as 20 to 30 minutes. So again, I continue to advise everyone to not spend prolonged periods of time outside, especially for the next 2 days. But take a look at next week. We're going to possibly be seeing 40s for a few days in a row. I mean, Monday through Wednesday, the forecasted high is in the lower 40s right now. We also have a better chance of some precipitation, but with the temperatures being as mild as they were, we could see some rain and snow. So after Wednesday, temperatures will slowly increase from Thursday through Saturday, and then they're going to increase a lot for Sunday, and those temperatures will continue for a good chunk of next week.
Hang on for the next 2 days. All right, Jacob, thank you. The rest of the country, as Jacob was just saying, is also dealing with some severe weather. Down south, people saw snow, high winds, and flash flooding. In Kentucky, at least 11 people died. That area is now under a disaster declaration as it braces for another weather system that will bring heavy snow.
The Trump administration is pushing forward to try to broker a peace deal in Ukraine. Tomorrow, Trump administration officials and their Russian counterparts are scheduled to talk about ending the war at a meeting in Saudi Arabia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country will not participate in or recognize the outcome of those talks. Meanwhile, European leaders met for an emergency summit today amid growing concerns the Trump administration will leave Kyiv and Europe isolated.
And back home, the Trump administration has placed 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports.
And on Friday, the president signed off on reciprocal tariffs, which would increase U.S. tariffs to match the tax rates other countries charge on imports.
We spoke with CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarlane about how those tariffs could affect your pocketbook.
Yeah, that's less than clear, but I think here's something you can probably take to the bank metaphorically. If you're going to one of those big chain stores and buying international goods, things that are made in China, things made in India, made in Mexico, tariffs are going to impact potentially what the people who distribute those and manufacture those charge you at the store. So some of this depends on where you shop and what you buy, but I think fundamentally there's this concern that if it does impact your grocery prices, those things you buy every weekend, be it food or otherwise, that's going to get some kickback from an electorate that voted very much on their wallets in November.
The president earlier this week imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, and Canada's leaders said they would retaliate, and they said those tariffs could affect dairy farmers.
When you start a trade war, it's hard to end a trade war, and there are casualties to a trade war, including those who, for example, are into agriculture, who are farmers, who are ranchers. So they're right to have some concerns. But some of the president's allies would argue some of this rhetoric and some of these threats are negotiating tools to earn leverage, to quickly rescind the threat or rescind the tariff once things change on the ground. So this is somewhat in the eye of the beholder, whether this is going to be a long-term risk to dairy farmers in Wisconsin, whether this is going to be a long-form risk to automakers in Michigan who need to buy steel, which is now being tariffed, or whether the president's just trying to get some leverage over international partners, some allies, some not, Canada included.
Do you think, the people who voted for him, are they going to, we talked about prices, and when it affects someone, they start to not like that when the candidate they voted for has promised one thing and does the other. But do you think a lot of people will see this as a negotiating tactic and they'll hang in there with President Trump?
Oh, Brady, they're going to watch it closely. Our latest CBS News polling shows the president with a roughly 53% approval rating on performance. That is among the highest he's ever yielded. It's kind of in line with his popular vote margin in so many of the battleground states, kind of close to the share of vote he won in Wisconsin. But the concern among the voters in the same poll is it doesn't seem to be doing enough or moving more vocally enough or forcefully enough to combat high prices. It's going to be a measuring stick. It always is for any president. It will be for this one, especially in communities in Wisconsin where he so focused his message on prices and the cost of living.
We'll continue to watch it very closely. Scott, we appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, it may only be Monday, but don't worry, everyone. Josh Sprider is already looking ahead to the weekend.
As we all are, warmer weather. The special events coming up, Josh will tell you how you can be a part of it all. That's when Live at 4 returns.
Welcome back, everyone. In the 608, we're looking ahead to an event this weekend, which is all about giving back to some local high school students.
Our Josh Sprider is in Madison with how you can show support through the event Delish.
I feel like we're at the cooking channel here in the 608 today as we're talking about Delish, a gourmet gala for good. This is at Edgewood High School where we're at today, but the event is actually going to be at Garber Feed Mill later on this weekend. I want to start with Kevin Ray with the Edgewood High School. Of course, you're the president here. And, you know, an event like this, super important for what you guys are and your mission.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a real honor to be here at Edgewood because our students get to do amazing things like hang out with amazing chefs like Dan and do some really cool cooking. So this Saturday night, we're going to honor all the wonderful stuff that our kids do by having an event at Garver Feed Mill. It's called Delish, a Gala for Good. And the whole point of the evening is to raise money to allow as many families who want to have an Edgewood high school education to have it. Our Dominican Sisters of Sinsinawa have charged us to be open to all in Madison, and last year we gave away over $1 million in financial assistance to families. So the point of this evening is to raise as many funds to have as many students who want to come to Edgewood to be able to come to Edgewood to have amazing experiences like working with Dan here.
You know, what's it like to be able to have those community partners in this mission?
Well, you know, two of our values are our community and partnership. And Edgewood is a community school, and it is just part of the education that we provide, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, that our students can get to do these kind of amazing things.
And we want to talk with Chef Dan Fox, who's joining us from Heritage Tavern. Dan, good to see you.
Good to see you.
What are you cooking up here today?
Well, we got some beautiful pork belly. This has been kind of pre-cooked, confit. Brumoir's cooked in its own juices. We take it out and it's kind of crisping up in a pan here.
Oh my gosh, that looks
almost
delicious.
like glorious bacon, if you will.
Yeah, there you go.
And this is one of our signature dishes at Heritage Tavern that we're super excited to feature this Saturday at the Delish event. And I couldn't think about anything better to support and raise money for the community, especially our younger generation of folks coming up here in the culinary world.
You know, why is it so important for you in wanting to give back to these kids?
Really, the kids are the future, and if I wasn't afforded the opportunity when I was a young person to learn, spread my wings in the kitchen, you know, lower that intimidation level down. It's kind of intimidating to walk in the kitchen when you're a young person, and if someone didn't allow me the opportunity to teach me and show me the way, I'd never be here today.
And working with those kids kind of brings you back too.
It brings it full circle.
Oh, I love that. I love that. All right, Kevin, so people can get their tickets now. The event's not until Saturday, but what do they need to know?
Yeah, they need to go to edgewoodhs.org and buy tickets for themselves, their family, and 100 of their closest friends. And we'll look forward to packing out the Garver Feed Mill for a great cause on Saturday night.
I got to start going down my contact list for those 100 friends.
Yeah, me too.
You know, this is so awesome that you guys are doing this, and really, this is all about the future.
It is, absolutely. And we got so many wonderful students, and so many of them stay in Madison. And also, we have about 12,000 alums, and 50% of them reside in Dane County. So this really is an event that is helping to seed the future of Dane County.
All right, well, we're going to help make a difference. Kevin, Dan, thank you guys so much. If you'd like to learn more and get those tickets for Delish again this Saturday, just go to the story up on channel3000.com. I have a link right there. In Madison, I'm Josh Breiter, News 3 Now.
I think Josh needs some taste testers to go with him on these food assignments.
You're right, yeah.
We could just sit in the background. We don't have to bother anyone.
Great event.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Josh, Kevin, and Dan. The Spirit of Service campaign, by the way, is underway. We're looking to honor our local veterans, making a positive impact in the community.
News 3 Now is partnering with Vortex and giving back to veterans. All you have to do is log on to channel3000.com and nominate a veteran in your life doing something good. Over the coming weeks, we'll be sharing their stories, and you'll get to vote and choose which veteran gets to take home a $5,000 cash prize. A winner will be announced in early April.
Well, coming up on Live at 4, the spring primary election is tomorrow. How you can still get an ID to vote.
Plus, why one woman says the governor's proposal on prison reform isn't enough.
Well, after a snowy weekend, now comes the bitter cold.
And the weather words are today even colder tonight. Oh, that doesn't sound great to me, Jacob.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great to me either, but unfortunately, that's the reality of what is going to happen. We could be talking about wind chills near -30 by tomorrow morning. Now, right now, looking at the actual temperatures, they're barely above zero, and this is typically the time of the day, at least around this time, where we see some of the warmest temperatures of the day. And these are pretty close to the highs for today, and those are just the actual temperatures. Looking at the current wind speeds, around 10 to 15 miles per hour, which is creating very cold wind chills in the negative teens at this hour for much of southern Wisconsin. Some areas still near -20. Now take a look at this. Looking further off to the north, obviously there are a few locations in Canada colder than us, but how about Fort McPherson? Not too far from the Arctic. The wind chill there is warmer than it is here, if you could believe it. And a lot of Alaska, that is the case as well. So we're pretty much colder than southern Alaska, and actually in some cases central Alaska. Just goes to show you how cold we are. And we're going to drop back below zero overnight. Honestly, we're going to drop back below zero during the evening, and then later in the night we're going to see actual temperatures in the negative teens. Wind chills, as I mentioned, near -30. I'll talk more in detail about just how bad the wind chills will get coming up a bit later.
Thanks, Jacob. We are continuing to follow a Delta plane crash at the Toronto airport.
And we have some updated numbers to share with you now. Delta has confirmed the flight from Minneapolis was carrying 80 people, including 4 crew members. At least 15 people are injured, and we're now hearing that 2 are in critical condition, but none of the injuries, luckily, are considered life-threatening.
We are also continuing to follow the sweeping plan Governor Tony Evers is laying out for Wisconsin's prison system.
Our Kyle Pozorski spoke with a prison reform advocate who says the plan left her disappointed.
It was the summer of 2023 when Dean Hoffman died by suicide at the Waupun Correctional Institution. His daughter Megan has been a prison reform activist ever since.
It jumped me right into it.
Over the weekend, Governor Tony Evers laid out a plan described as a domino of changes to the state's correctional facilities, including improvements and modernizations. One of the biggest changes was shut down the Green Bay Correctional Institution. But to Hoffman Cobb, it's the governor's plan for Waupun that's catching her eye.
From what I've heard is it's at a state that it can never come back from as far as fixing.
Under Evers' plan, Waupun, or WCI, will be transformed to a medium-security vocational village, emphasizing on workforce readiness. The governor's office says this would help achieve the goal of stabilizing the state's prison population.
There definitely needs to be that reform aspect. How are we going to make sure our prison population doesn't keep growing?
If included in the governor's final budget proposal, the changes to WCI would not be ready until at least 2031. In Madison, Kyle Pozorski, News 3 Now.
Kyle, thank you. The plan for Waupun would temporarily shut the facility down to demolish the existing cell halls, and then they would rebuild 600 cells at a cost of more than $245 million.
Tomorrow is the spring primary, and it's not too late to get what you need to vote. In Wisconsin, you need to bring a voter ID to the polls in order to vote. The Wisconsin Elections Commission has a full list of acceptable forms of identification at bringit.wi.gov. If you don't have any of those, you can get a free ID for voting at your local DMV. You can find the necessary documents you'll need to bring to get an ID at the Wisconsin Department of Transportation's website. Just go to wisconsindot.gov and click free ID for voting.
Well, there are only 8 races on the ballot in Dane County for tomorrow's spring primary.
Yeah, 8 races on a day forecast to only be 8 degrees. How are elections officials expecting that to impact turnout? Arman Rahman finds out.
The Dane County Clerk says while we typically have a higher turnout than the entire state, Tuesday's low temps may lower that a bit.
Should be a quick in and out of the polling place.
Polling places that will all be inside in Dane County, according to Clerk Scott McDonald. In the 2024 spring primary, barely 8% of 61,000 registered voters in the county turned out to vote. This year, more than 400,000 voters are registered. McDonald expects about 15 to 20% turnout tomorrow and says the extreme cold is not a problem on the ballot side of things.
Snow and rain, I mean, typically water is the thing that causes the most difficulty. So But, you just got to be careful out there with the wind chills, but parking near the polls to get in and out should be a little easier.
There are also a few more races on the ballot, namely for DPI State Superintendent. Incumbent Dr. Jill Underly seeks to defend her seat against Sauk Prairie Superintendent Jeff Wright and Education Consultant Brittany Kinzer. Madison will see primaries for 3 Alder districts, and both Fitchburg and Sun Prairie have 1 district on the ballot. This is the first election in Madison since last November, where 193 absentee ballots went unprocessed. I'll have more from the city clerk on how she expects Tuesday to go tonight at 6.
Thanks, Armand. If you were planning to vote absentee in Madison but haven't returned your ballot yet, you can still take it to a drop box before 5 p.m. today. If you can't, you can take it to your polling place tomorrow or just vote in person there. And you can find in-depth conversations with each DPI candidate on channel3000.com or with the free Channel 3000 mobile app.
Tomorrow, the state Supreme Court will release its decision on the legality of mobile voting vans. Last September, the justices heard a case on whether a Republican had standing to bring a lawsuit challenging the use of a van. The single van was used once in Racine for a primary election in 2022. It allowed voters to cast absentee ballots in the 2 weeks leading up to the election.
Next month, Metro Transit will be available in Monona starting Monday, March 3rd. Metro's existing Route 38 will provide weekday trips into the city from 7 in the morning through 7 at night. It'll serve several locations, including the Pier 37 Shopping Center, Heritage Senior Living, and Monona Grove High School. Paratransit will also be available for people who live within 3/4 of a mile within the new Route 38 bus stops. Well, coming up, the latest Marvel movie was a smash at the box office this weekend.
But does it live up to the hype? We'll find out in today's Loper Report. That's when Live at 4 returns.
The highly anticipated Marvel film Captain America: Brave New World opened over the weekend.
It's the latest Marvel adventure. Is it worth your time? Well, here's what our film critic Will Loper thinks.
Marvel's latest film, Captain America: Brave New World, hulked out at the box office, making $88 million through the 3-day weekend and a projected $100 million through Monday, the 4th highest for President's Day weekend. But is the superhero flick worth seeing, or will it have you seeing red?
Wilson. Thanks for coming in.
Anthony Mackie plays Sam Wilson, picking up the mantle and shield of Captain America after the events of Avengers Endgame.
I want to make another run at making Captain America an official military position.
Harrison Ford plays newly elected President Thaddeus Ross, who has a rocky relationship with Sam.
And if we disagree on how to manage a situation, then what happens? Work with me, Sam.
After Sam's friend is involved in an assassination attempt, Captain America spends the rest of the movie uncovering secrets.
Whatever this is, Cap, be careful.
The first half of the movie plays out like an intriguing political thriller with echoes of the Manchurian Candidate.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it. Watch yourself.
But once the plot begins to reveal itself, it becomes ridiculous rather than thrilling, along with unearned emotional beats.
Nothing about this feels right.
There are 2 entertaining set pieces, including Harrison Ford turning red and roaring.
Since when were they red?
But on the whole, Captain America: Brave New World is near the bottom of the Marvel movie roster. Wait until it's streaming at home. For Live at 4, I'm Will Loper.
Well, it still did very well at the box office, though. People probably felt a little stir-crazy with the cold weather.
Yeah, it was a good time to hide in the movie theater.
Yeah, right. When we come back, Shyla Murgain will join us. We're going to talk about stress's impact on heart health.
And Live at 4 returns right after this. Well, if you want to go somewhere to get out of the cold, don't go to Chicago. It is 8 degrees there, and it looks like that too.
It's still a pretty shot off the lake, but we could use a little inspiration. Maybe some Honolulu, some Miami this week.
Yeah,
that'll
sounds
help
better.
us out. Well, February is American Heart Month, and learning to manage stress, believe it or not, is a major factor in heart health.
Chronic stress can lead to a wide variety of health issues, and that's why it's critical to know how to manage stress. UW Health distinguished psychologist Shyla Murgain is here to talk about that with us. Hi.
Hi, Shyla. Good to see
great
you.
to see you both.
So how do you define chronic stress?
Well, we know that heart disease is the leading cause of death in both men and women, and I think about managing it as a three-pronged stool. We want to exercise, we want to eat well, and we want to manage stress. Our bodies are designed to deal with a few stressors a day, but people are having upwards of 50 stressors a day, which means that their physiology is getting stuck in that sympathetic arousal, that fight or flight response, that stress response, and that's really when we get into that notion of chronic stress, that we're not getting that balance in our system that we need for a healthy heart.
Boy, I can really relate to that. And you can feel it physically. You can feel the strain that it puts on your heart. But it's very hard to manage.
I think about it as a teeter-totter stress, but then we need recovery to keep our system in balance. Our bodies are designed to deal with stress, but for many of us, being bombarded with what's coming at us, we're kind of getting stuck in that stress zone. And so thinking about active recovery throughout the day can be really helpful to keeping that happy and healthy heart.
A couple of weeks ago, I was out sick for a couple of days, and I just had some time to myself, and it really helped me. So I think I just had some quiet time. So when people have quiet time, what are some ways that they can just be mindful about managing the stress?
Well, we talked about exercise. Moving your body is a great antidote to stress, but my favorite is just slower, lower breathing. Doing some belly breathing, and in particular doing a 4-6 breath count. So breathing in for 4, and then out for 6, and in through the nose for 4, and then out for 6. So imagine the balloon breathing in, the belly's filling with air, breathing out, the belly's constricting or deflating. And if we can do that when we find ourselves getting keyed up, you can do breathing anytime at a traffic light, in line at the bank, during a difficult meeting. And that kind of breathing, even a minute or two, gets that recovery in our system back in balance.
What about relaxation?
Yes, so thinking about, we tense up when we're stressed, we're clenching our jaw, and think about maybe at night just doing a brief body scan and relaxing any unnecessary tension. I always encourage people to relax their forehead, their jaw, the tongue, and the back of the tongue. And that often allows our shoulders to go down. As we combine that with the breath, maybe a deep breath out, and that can really help, again, really protect our physiology, so we're not just ratcheting up that stress.
We live in scarcity a lot, and it's always, I don't have this, I don't have this. So like a gratitude journal, when you're being mindful of what you do have, does that help?
I love that. The good things in life, the things that are going well. And if we're going into a stressful situation, we often complain and get negative, and oh, I have to. Think about saying the words, I get to. I get to do this. And what if this was taken away? We might even miss it. And sometimes when we approach it with that get to mindset, we again don't feel so stressed. We feel a little grateful.
And of course, sleep is always so important, but such a challenge.
Absolutely. Really prioritizing sleep, especially this time of year. And don't isolate. The Framingham Heart Study found that one of the single biggest predictors of long-term health was social support. Not necessarily having tons of people, but even a few people that you keep them close is really protective against heart disease and promotes overall lifelong health.
Goes a long way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you, Shyla.
Yeah, and encourage everyone to just keep taking care of their heart.
Very good. Well, Shyla said don't isolate, but you might want to isolate inside during this cold weather
and
for a bit.
do a lot of deep breathing.
Deep breathing.
Get through the next 3 days.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a good idea because temperatures will be getting worse before they get better as we are going to continue to see those alert day conditions through Wednesday. It also will be dry for much of this week with milder temperatures by Sunday. But even after Wednesday, for Thursday and Friday, it's still going to be cold, just not alert day conditions cold. So taking a look at the wind chill forecast, right now we're in the negative teens. We're going to drop to near negative 30-degree levels tonight into tomorrow morning. And for Tuesday Tuesday afternoon, it's not going to get much better. Still seeing those wind chills in the negative teens, and then they're going to drop back into the negative 20s for Wednesday morning. And then by Wednesday afternoon, we may see those wind chills improve a little bit, compared to Tuesday. Still going to be very cold, as we are going to potentially see some areas have wind chills above 0 for Wednesday afternoon, but then they're going to drop back below 0 for Thursday morning. Not quite as bad as what we're going to see tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning, as they'll be in the negative teens. And then by Tuesday afternoon, we're going to finally see those wind chills get back above 0. But when those wind chills, especially during those morning hours, get into the negative 20s, we could be talking about frostbite in as little as around 15 to 20 minutes, especially for tomorrow morning, where the wind chills could get to negative 30. And it's felt by all living things, which does include your pets. So if you maybe are considering taking your pet for a walk and you're bundled up, the pets can feel the wind chills too, not just you. So just be aware. I would advise probably not taking your pets on a walk for the next couple of days. And the good news is that we are going to see those temperatures warming back up. Highs will be in the 40s for next week. Now let's take a brief break and talk about the snowfall. So far this winter, we've had around 17 inches. So the snowfall that we've seen the last week or so did eat into that deficit that we've been seeing, but we're still 16 inches below normal, and there's not really going to be a big snowfall going forward. In fact, we're really not going to see any snowfall for the rest of this week. Maybe some precipitation next week, but by then, temperatures will be warm enough to the point where we actually may see some rain mixed in with the snow. But I assume a lot of people would probably just take those temperatures at this point. It is looking a lot better next week in general, as they will slowly warm up for the end of this week and then warm up dramatically once we get to Sunday.
We have a breaking update to the Delta Airlines crash in Toronto.
We are once again receiving updated numbers as this story develops. 19 people now are injured, less than a handful in critical condition, but one of those victims is a child. This video, it's remarkable to see this, shows the plane flipped upside down at the airport in Toronto. All 80 people on board were evacuated. The incident comes less than 3 weeks after an American Airlines plane collided midair with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River. We'll continue to provide updates right here on News 3 Now.
We'll be right back.
Tomorrow on Live at 4, we'll preview the governor's budget address with political analyst Brandon Scholes. And later on News 3 Now at 6, Arman Rahman speaks with Madison's clerk about how her office prepared to handle tomorrow's spring primary election. That's coming up at 6. Thanks for watching Live at 4 today, everybody. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. News 3 Now at 5 with a special guest is back. Starts right now.